All right, well guys, what's going on? This is Logan with West Desert Wheeler. Today we've got my WDW Capra out here, and this guy has gone through some major changes recently, including Vanquish Capra housings, including a drag axle rear Vanquish housing. Not a lot of people went that route. Fortunately, they didn't, because that's why there were only drag axle housings available in stock on Vanquish's website as of lately. I'm not sure how much longer that's going to last, if I'm honest, but this guy also just got a new ESC compared to the last time you guys seen it. It also has a team spec revolver 1800, and that's because I had swapped what was in there into a different truck. I put a different motor and ESC in that, and it turned out that that ESC was bad, so then I had to swap it again for this video. But also in this video, this thing has some new tires. So let's take a look at these. These are the Jconcepts Bossman tires, and I have liked the look of these tires since they came out from Jconcepts. They're a little hard to track down and get a hold of, but I took them and modified them and made a set of cut and shuts out of the Jconcepts Bossman. I really like the green compound. I don't mind Jconcepts tires at all. I think they perform great, but they're hard to get in stock. So made a set of cut and shuts for them. I may do a very limited release on these through my website, and more details on that through westdesertwheeler.com. But for now, it's getting hot out here. It's time to start crawling so I can get back home before I am cooked. All right, so recap on this truck for those that don't know. This has the Reefs XPT3 transmission in there. So it's got more gear reduction than a factory Capra transmission from the original Capra. The more recent and available four-wheel steer Capra has an upgraded transmission that now has more gear reduction, which is what they needed from the start. So back on this OG drag axle Capra, you had to swap out the transmissions to get the proper gear reduction to make it a good crawler. Wow, these Bossman tires hooked up right there, no doubt. Working our way up, we also have those Vanquish aluminum housings on the back. Now they're black, so they kind of look plastic if you're not looking close, but definitely the nicest Capra axle ever produced for the Capra housings. That also changed some things up as far as geometry. The rear has adjustable upper link points on there. I didn't go as high as possible. I think I went one notch down from as high as possible. And then the front, the differential sits offset. So you actually have a driver drop pumpkin in the front, which makes it cool because you could use these with like a VFD transmission on a custom build if you wanted. But this guy just has the Reefs transmission. Also got a Reefs 888 direct power servo in here as well. So plenty of steering power going on with this dude. The wheels are from Spec RC, and I have scale hardware on the rings as well as the hubs. Locked up RC for the ring scale hardware, Vanquish for hubs and hub hardware. So I guess update on that RC Speedy buggy that I made a video with recently that I said I purchased. In the video I talked about that I was mostly interested in the axles. So the front axle on this car is from that Speedy. So the other steer axle is actually sitting in a box. It is waiting for another future project that I've got on the way from UC Fab. Got sand on these rocks and these new sticky tires. The sand just sticks to them and kills my traction. So you're gonna kind of have to wear the oils off of these a few times before we get maximum traction. When they were clean, they were hooking up really good. And now that we've got sand on them, it's an issue. There we go. SL3D RC Squid'n'serts in here. And then the insert size I'm using is for my cut and shut trepidors, which are a little bit bigger than my cut and shut crawler inserts. And these tires just have a thin carcass to them, so going that little bit taller to make up for the thin carcass. But the housing on here in the front is from that Speedy buggy. And then, like I say, I've got another project coming up that I'm going to use that other front steering housing I had. As far as the Speedy buggy itself, I did sell that to one of my friends locally, so the car is gone. And that got snatched up pretty quick. I didn't even end up listing it like I mentioned that I would. It sold before I had the opportunity to really do so. Trying to find just the right pinch here. I'd like to be able to climb that right side and the left side fairly evenly. But I don't think I can climb just the left side and bring it back up. Although we're on the strongest housings there are. So we can force this thing through a bind now. Now you might be asking, why did I do aluminum housings with a drag axle on this setup? You guys all know that I love my 4-wheel steer setups, but the truth is, driving this car lately, it's been one of my absolute favorite, just grab the car, go crawl, especially with my son and whatnot. He'll drive the 4-wheel steer optic, and I just love this drag axle Capra for some reason. It just reminds me why I like the Capras, and specifically the drag axle. It makes me drive a little bit, it makes it a little more challenging to drive it, truthfully. Oh, that was almost it. And so that's kind of the fun of it, is that I have to drive it just a little bit more using that drag axle setup. So I always kind of wanted some Vanquish housings on this unit. I mean, who doesn't? But finally was able to make it happen, and I decided that I had the 2 steer axles in black from that Speedy Buggy. I do not intend on letting go of those anytime, now that they're not available anymore from Vanquish. And I said, hey, you know what? If I get a drag axle as well, I can run any combo I want with Capra axle setup, drag axle, or 4-wheel steer, and they'll be matching. And so I got a new in-package Capra drag axle to go along with the 4-wheel steer setup I had. So I'm still 1 axle short to run 2 rigs, but that's okay. I can manage. Ah, that was it. Dang it, it's so close. Did you guys see that, man? It's starting to pull up, and it gave up just right at the last second. We're gonna give this just a little bit more of a shot, and then we gotta move on, because I don't want to waste too much time burning out on this rock. Yeah, that right rear is not in a position. So let's see if we can do the more cheater line here. The left rear is getting us in trouble. Yeah, it's not gonna let us up today, and that's okay. These tires, like I say, have some sand on them. It's not real happy about it. Super planted though. Most cars in this kind of off-camber climb steep like this with that ledge on the right rear would want to roll over, but this one's staying planted. Come on, get up there. I'll give it a bump. Can you bring it back over this way? Use that front tire as a hook. There we go. If you bump and your front tire isn't on top of that ledge, as the car comes up and it bumps the ledge, it'll fall off. Really struggling with the sand on these things. That's why I don't like super sticky tires out of the package. A lot of people think that's like some awesome thing. For me, it just kills my traction for the first run or two. So, but I like the tread pattern on these. I really do like these Bossman tires. Someone mentioned that they look like a Nitto trail grappler, and that's not too far off of that. It's kind of like a Toyo or a Nitto mud terrain like that, but definitely their own proprietary design. Maybe it's inspired by a specific tire. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it's something in the side-by-side world. So you guys will have to let me know. Is there a tire that looks a lot like this? Because I know that their other tire that they released with this was certainly just a Mickey Thompson clone. So the rock crawling trail we're following today, I call it Risk. It is one of my oldest RC trails out here. I pretty much have Mouse Trail and Risks. Those go all the way back to the beginnings of my channel, and I've driven quite a few vehicles along this trail. So it's kind of fun to go back and see how others did and compare it to the new stuff. That climb it just walked up right there, there's a lot of cars that struggle on that, and this Capra really doesn't care. It just drove right over it. So what do you guys think if I continue to offer these Jconcepts Bossman tires as cut and shuts? I mean, that's assuming that Jconcepts doesn't start producing them in an LP, which Jconcepts is really good at offering their tires in that 525 size, which is really cool because they're listening and paying attention to the market. There is demand out there for them. And they're pretty good about releasing a tire and then doing a 2.2 LP. So in the future, I would not be surprised if these become available from Jconcepts. But for now, I can make some cut and shuts, and people who are after this size with this tire, they may occasionally be available. The stock will be limited for sure. All right, because I know people are going to be asking, what's a cut and shut? You take a standard 1.9 tire, you cut the sidewall, the tread, and down the other sidewall. You take a donor tire and you cut a section of the tread out of it, same way, sidewall, tread, sidewall. And then you essentially come up with a donor piece of tire to glue into the original 1.9. So you take the original 1.9 that you cut in half, and then you insert that piece and glue it back together, which makes a taller tire that is the same 1.9 width. So what are the benefits of a cut and shut? It's a little bit taller tire without being too big, which look fantastic on Capras as well as H10s and other wide, long wheelbase vehicles. I typically don't recommend them on stuff like a stock stance or something like that. There are people who do, but it's not really how I build my trucks. SCX Pro, maybe on portals, an SCX Pro would work with that, but it's typically not what I suggest. It maintains the original width. It makes it a 2.2 bead, so you have to use a 2.2 wheel, and then you'll have to find specific foams or inserts. You can definitely stretch 1.9 foam onto a 2.2 wheel, even if it's dual stage, and you can make those work. I've driven those for a while, but the SL3D makes inserts tailored for my cut and shuts. And so then they're narrow for the narrow 2.2s that I suggest for people. I don't typically like to go wider than 30 millimeters on a 2.2 wheel. And I like the 19 and the 24s the most. Shift RCs, Reefs RC, Spec RC. Amazon has narrow 2.2s as well. Vanquish has some narrow 2.2s. There's definitely options in the market for wheels that complement cut and shuts. A lot of people ask me how I get a hold of Spec RC wheels. It shows everything's out of stock all the time on their website. That's because you have to follow their Instagram. They will open books and accept orders on wheels. So you can literally go in there. He'll open up books on different styles of wheels. So let's say 1.9 comp cuts. That's what you want if you're running a portal truck on a 1.9 rig. And you can go in there, you pay for your 1.9 comp cuts, and then you tell him which style you want. And by the way, he has like 150 styles of custom CNC wheels. They're super cool. Ooh, she gonna rotate and plant. Forward bias, come on. Stood up, vertical. She's gonna settle. Beautiful. And then he will make them to order, and you also get to choose the beadlock ring style you want as well, which is pretty cool. There's occasions where he'll just open up beadlock ring orders, and then the 2.2s are pretty rare to see him open up books on, so when they do open up, don't sleep on it, and I suggest grabbing a couple pairs, because these 2.2s are just so rad. Super cool wheels, and made in America, really high quality. And I believe he does that as kind of a spare time hobby. I know that he does something other than that full-time professionally, but he's a machinist full-time professionally. So he makes really high quality CNC custom wheels. And just the designs and the depth of the design, no other wheel company is really even close with the different concave shapes and bevels on the edges. Like, it's just, nobody's making wheels as good. I think we might have just scratched our rear housing. I love it. Nothing better than to flex some scratched up Vanquish housings. You know, and across the years, some of these rock formations have been knocked over and whatnot. So some of my early videos, this rock would look totally different because there used to be a rock overhang across this. Full-size buggies have open access to any rocks out here. Some of the guys have run over them and broken some of them off. It's just how it goes when you have open OHV. I'm not gonna cry about it, but it used to look a lot cooler for RCs. But just something about driving this thing. I love the way it handles. It just works so well. I like that it's a wide track width with the Capra axles. And I like that it's just super high clearance buggy cage with a Capra cage. I don't necessarily want to cage swap this or anything, like to a metal one. I like having an old school Capra. There we go, there it is. Front tire pushed up in there. I'm gonna try and rotate it. This little Holmes Team Spec 1800 is an amazingly smooth motor. It works really good. I've got the Holmes V2 Crawlmaster. Or no, it's a Holmes V3, my apologies. The V2, you had to assemble it yourself and solder it. Watching the tires work, trying to grab this ledge. Get up there, yeah. Cool, it's a nice little pull. This one, it's all about the rock stack in the bottom. I've had really bad luck with it in like the last 2 years. I did not stack these rocks here, somebody else did. I'm already digging holes in front of them. Let's get aggressive with our approach then. I do have a WDW Servo winch in here. We're gonna use that to try and float this tire across a little bit. Now we can let it back out, let the car articulate again. I finally got the rear in a position that it should climb the rocks. There it is. Now we can use our suspension winch to pull that center of gravity closer to the earth. Okay, our rears are not lined up where we want though. I need him to slide like a whole 2 inches further passenger in the rear. Damn, this is so close. I'm gonna have to stack another rock. Yep, gotta put one on that right rear. All right, we're starting small here. Hopefully that's all we need. Definitely the right, we're getting there. Maybe it wasn't enough. Get up there, truck. Get up there, truck. Tiny steering movements is all I'm doing here. Just trying to scrub it through. That was sick. That was the exact amount of rock we needed. Nice. You can see I'm trying to force that right rear down a little bit, so I suspension winched in, and it put more pressure on that right rear to try and get it to slip in to the crack a little more. Level out my suspension a bit. I don't know that I ever readjusted endpoints on this guy. I think I did, once I put the new housing on there. Pretty much the last key component to this is I need some black Vanquish servo mounts, whereas I've got hot racing mounts on this currently. Vanquish has clear in stock, but not black, so hopefully at some point we will see those restock. I'm not sure. Might be one of those unicorn items I gotta track down from old Vanquish parts. These axles also have more caster than the factory housings did, so you get more caster with the level pinion angle, and this one's still rocked back. The pinion angle is still dropped down a good bit compared to the original setup I had in it. It always had a low pinion in the front, like it was angled down a bit, and then giving it an axle with more caster exaggerated the caster while still keeping a lower pinion angle. I didn't really change the link setup on this when I swapped housings. You don't have to with this. because I went from Capra axles to a Capra housing replacement. And Vanquish did a good job of making them fit. Oh man, that front tire barely saved us. That was sweet. I knew I had to push it out to the edge, but that was right on the edge. That worked out nice. All right guys, so here's our next obstacle. We're gonna be dropping down off of this, and sometimes the sand is higher up. Right now it's just about completely gone. So I'm actually gonna do something that I've done in real life here. And with buggies, they have a forward weight bias in real life as well as the RCs. So to get more control on a reverse, or more control on a steep drop, you can back into it. And that leaves you with more traction up front, and you can control it a little more. Now with my real buggy, I had rear steer, so I could control the way the vehicle is positioned pretty easily if I'm going forward or backward. So we're gonna see if this works out here. And I've got myself up against the wall just to get to the lowest point possible for a reverse entry. We should be able to set the rears down onto the links, and it may slide a bit. Hopefully it stops there. I mean, it's about to let go. There we go. So it hit the links and slid down to the bottom nice and controlled. And then we're gonna slowly back up. I have overdrive in this car, so it's gonna try and make the suspension get all mad. Whereas in a real car, I can disengage the rear drive shaft, or disengage the front drive shaft, and do a rear wheel drive only to pull the rear end out from under the car. And so now we've made that big nasty drop. We did it super controlled. We never had to throttle out or anything. And we can work on to our next obstacle while driving scale. Well, unfortunately my GoPro just died on me because it's too hot out here. So the good news is we're almost done with this trail. So depending on how my phone treats me, we may end this trail even shorter. We'll find out. It should be good for a few minutes of recording in the heat. But this is always a super fun one. It gets steep up here. You gotta hit just the right line to get the belly through this notch. It's unloading on us. I'm gonna get that front passenger a little bit into a different position. Overdrive's gonna pull us through. Sick. Fortunately, I'm driving drag axle. It's really hard for me to drive rear steer trucks while recording on my phone. The GoPro I can hold in a different position, but phones are hard to record and drive rear steer. This is one of the worst breakovers out here, and it's extremely difficult to crawl. Although we do have some tall tires, I did forget to mention these Bossmans weigh these Bossmans measure 5.35 in a cut and shed. So we're gonna get onto the rocker panel and turn down and see if it'll drag it up. It's actually pretty close to doing it. Usually it requires a full throttle bump into this, at least with a traditional flat skid vehicle. Get it up there, get it up there. All right, I would absolutely consider that crawling it. Very nice work by the Capra there. This is such a good truck. All right, we got Sydney spotting for us on this one. We're gonna work our way up and around this corner into a V-notch, but it ends up in like a nasty pinch for the front right tire. And it's really hard to get just right to where the suspension doesn't get unhappy. Okay, I'm already falling off and I'm not quite got enough steering angle. That should be it. And then I'm gonna turn into this wall. So like I say, the suspension gets unhappy. All right, we handled that pretty well. So now let's try and get it to float. We're gonna use our front suck down winch to pull that front axle up. Perfect. That was absolute work of art there. And then in the hood, we can release it. There we go, give it a little bit of winch line in there. We're gonna have to correct the rear. But yeah, floating that axle across with that WDW micro winch mount worked perfect. Which, by the way, are back in stock at westdesertwheeler.com. They were out of stock for a while, but I did pick up a new batch. They're only available in black this time around. So if you guys want one, go get one. And here we are, super rad notch. It's not even like a V-notch, it's just straight cut hallway here. We get to drive up and over the top of it. Left rear is gonna try and drop in. We're gonna keep her balanced. Try not to tip over. There we go, onto the housing and we're out. All right, guys, the new cut and shut Bossman did excellent. It's hot out here. Sydney's hot, I'm hot. We're ready to get out of here, go get some water. But I appreciate you guys watching. I've got affiliate links down below. I've got links to my friends' companies as well, so be sure to check all those out. My name's Logan with West Desert Wheeler. Keep the rubber side down.